Okay, we are back on the Get Foxy show with Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Felicia Jones. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you are rocking and rolling out there, going from place to place, traveling, speaking. You've got a lot going on, lady. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me, Terry. So this is going to be fun. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. Now, just to set the stage here, Felicia and I have actually known each other for a few years. Uh, Really, kind of when you started your journey on becoming a budgetologist.
Yeah, this
And
was, have we known each other almost 4 years now, I think.
yeah, yeah. So it's exciting for me to finally get you on because, doggone, you are a mover and shaker. So tell my listeners a little about you, where you grew up, and were money and financial matters something that kind of came natural to you, or is this something you sort of fell into?
Oh, wow. So you want to go back, like where I grew up. So, so I'm a budgetologist and I started this journey 4 years ago. And it just came on a whim when I was at like a mastermind meeting and I really wanted to start a business, but I didn't have an idea. And I just randomly mentioned that I like to create spreadsheets for fun, budgeting spreadsheets. And I'm finding out that not everybody does that just for fun. Um, so with that idea, and somebody said, well, you could help me, but I knew right then and there that if I were to give them my spreadsheet, it would never work. So I had to go a little bit creative and try to figure out how to teach money to someone who really would never really pay attention. And that's where the journey began. And did money come to me naturally? No, I am a spender at heart. And I learned the good old fashioned way about money. I came out of college, worked for the Navy. I have a computer science degree. I have a master's in systems engineering. And you would assume that I could add and subtract. But, you know, I mean, I had a job at the beach and I was making $100,000. So I kind of did what most 23-year-olds do. I just spent it and bought shoes and passport stamps. So the money came not so easy, but it was just a kick in the pants that I needed to change how I was living. And that's how all of this got started. I eventually retired from the Navy and started my own business. And that's where I am now. And that's why we're here today.
Usually, I save this question for later on in the show, but I'm going to bring this right out,
Ooh.
right off the bat. What does being foxy mean to you, Felicia?
Oh my gosh, being foxy. I think right now where I am in life, being foxy is just being fun. And growing a business is a lot of hard work. And you know that this entrepreneurship game is, I mean, it's a long game and it can wear you out. It can overwhelm you. And I think right now, foxy just means having fun and owning where I am and just enjoying life to the fullest.
How does what you do bring out the foxiness in your clients? How do you help your clients get fun and foxy? What's that relationship between money and foxiness, according to Mrs. Jones?
You know, I think it really is the fun part in relaxing people. Understanding money it's a hard one. It's a hard one to hear the truths of how we are managing money, how we look at money, and our mindset of how we grew up around money. So one of the things that I try to do is try to relax people, bring in a little humor, let people know, hey, you're not the only one who's going through this. Because I know sometimes we can be around financial advisors and it's as if they're pointing at us and talking at us, and they never really tell us their own financial stories. And I was like that too. I went to a financial advisor and I think I got talked to and bought some things that I really didn't need. And that just kind of started the crusade of kind of getting people to the point of, you know what, you're not the only one out there. We're just going to have a little bit of fun. I'll tell you all my crazy money stories. There are other people going through this. So the real thing is just to get the shame out of the way. And when we get the shame out of the way, then we can get a little bit foxy, we can have more fun, and we can take care of what we need to do.
So you see a fair amount of shame in your clients. How do you go about addressing that and helping them clear that out?
I'm kind of like a brute force clearing out of shame, only because I work with a lot of business owners around money. And I understand that we need to take the time to deal with money mindset and all of those other little things that go on, those little angry things or mean things we tell ourselves in our head. But the reality is with business owners, sometimes we just don't have time. We don't have time to wait a year to clear our money mindset and then start working on the business. So we kind of just go straight in and we just kind of hit it and like, all right, let's look at the business finances and kind of understanding that, you know what, you're the one who made the choice to go into business. So you have to own all of it. Now, I do give a little bit of tough love, but I found that it really works on some people. Not everybody. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but it really works on some people to kind of get the message home that, you know what, this is your business. You have to own it. And the more you're not doing what you need to do, the more the family suffers, your debt suffers, your ability to grow wealth. So we kind of have to hit on all of that. And it does take a while for people to kind of get through those barriers, but it's so much fun when we do, and then we can get on the other side and start putting systems into place. It's just so much fun to see the transformation.
And out of all the folks that you've worked with so far, what are some of the most outstanding transformations that you've seen?
Oh, wow. Some of the biggest, just money-wise, if we put numbers on it, I actually worked with a young lady in January, and this was just a 45-minute coaching session that I do with people. And she was making $300,000 in the business, and they've been averaging around $250,000, but there was no money. There was absolutely no money. They couldn't afford to pay taxes. They barely had money at home, didn't have any savings, weren't giving themselves salary. And I gave her just this quick little system. I said, you got to sit down and look at everything you're spending money on. And about 4 months later, she sent an email. She said, you know what, your tips helped. And we found $10,000 of unnecessary spending in the business alone. And she said way more at home. I was like, wow, that was a big one, because $300,000, you should have some money at home. The other transformation is just seeing people go from being timid to like really flourishing around money. I teach people that you should have a CFO day, and that's the 1st and 15th of each month. And watching a client who absolutely resists everything I say for about the first couple of months. And then by month 4, they were like, yeah, I have a CFO day, so I didn't go out today so I can do my numbers. I sit there and like almost start crying. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, who are you? So I love all of those stories. And then just the emails and messages of people that just say, thank you. I never even thought to look at my money this way. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool when you get all of those messages.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to me how we can have this kind of odd relationship with money. And so you said shame is involved a fair amount, and we start to work on ourselves, clear that out, figure out our relationship with money. It's almost really working on the relationship with ourselves, and then that sort of improves the relationship with money, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. This is interesting. I actually, I'm a contributor for a magazine, and I was working on the article last night, and it was around how serious are you about your financial matters? And the opening sentence was that, all of this is hard, but you got to start dealing with you first, because you will be in the way of all of your financial decisions. So you kind of have to start working on yourself and just start seeing like how you see money, how you interact with money. What do you think money is supposed to do for you? And the moment you do that, it makes life a lot easier. But the fact that we have so much shame and judgment around how we use our money, it makes people just hide, and they're afraid to get help. They're afraid to talk about it. And one of the reasons why, I live stream every day or I go out and speak is just to say, hey, if you need help, just ask. I know tons of money nerds. And like, if I'm not the right person, I'm part of a community of, I think we have about 15,000 money people in that community. I said, I can find somebody to help you because I know what it's like, and living with that much shame, that much judgment can get in the way for a very, very long time. And by the time we figure it out, I hate to say it, but sometimes it can be too late for some of us. So we got to start breaking these barriers of not judging ourselves too harshly, because you don't know what you don't know. And it's the same with me. You didn't know, most people didn't know how to manage money. But you got to learn at some point.
What are some of the most common questions that you get about being a budgetologist and your work?
Oh my gosh, my favorite question to answer, and I answer every week, is how do you get started? It's like, how do you get started with budgeting? And followed by, what tools and systems do you use? And I always tell people the way you get started is just use the system that I like. The 1st and 15th of each month, take 1 hour to look at your finances. Now, I know a lot of people want to jump straight to the tools, and, I love Mint, and you have the QuickBooks, you have FreshBooks, you have tons and tons of tools, but tools don't help you if you just refuse to look. And taking 1 hour on the 1st and 15th of every month, I tell people, don't try to solve all the world's problems. You don't have to pay off debt right then and there. If you've had it for 5 years, unless you got $1 billion, it's not going away that fast. But I want you just to get comfortable with understanding what your money looks like. Be comfortable with the fact that every 1st and 15th, you have to open up that bank statement and pay attention for an hour. And you'd be surprised how many people just doing that simple act will get them to really just relax and start making moves to really focus on their budget. And, and of course, then we follow with the tools, the systems, the spreadsheets. But I have found that if you just refuse to look at the numbers, a spreadsheet won't help. All of these amazing tools out there won't help, but you just got to start paying attention first.
I know for me, and of course, this is something I'm still working on, but in the past, a lot of my money issues kind of stemmed from fear and avoidance. And it was like, well, I'm not good with numbers. I don't understand this. So I'm just going to not look at it. And I've found that really doesn't serve, but at the same time, it's so difficult to face that fear and delve into it. So how do you encourage your folks when it comes to dealing with those fears?
Oh my gosh, I'm actually going to turn this back on you.
Okay.
So you weren't ready for this one, but you are in the health profession. You are in the health and wellness profession, and you see the same thing. How do you get people to get over the fear of actually going to get help to check out that little lump, or to actually, stop sitting in pain? Like, what do you tell people?
Well, if I've got somebody that's on my table and I see something that really I know is affecting their life, yeah, it's a tough love situation. Again, okay, here's what we've got. Yeah, you've got something, for example, if I see a mole that is not looking symmetrical, it's got a lot of colors, it's funky looking. Okay, well, you know what? That's a pretty good sign of skin cancer. Mm-hmm. And if you don't get that taken care of, you may be in a world of hurt later on down the road. So let's get it checked out. Let's get that taken care of so that you can have more peace of mind and you can relax about it instead of having your head in the sand and saying, well, I don't know. Because God forbid it gets worse and you end up with a longer life of suffering, even death. So that's how I would handle it.
Yeah. So basically just insert money. There you go. No, but it's the same thing is just getting somebody to really pay attention to what are their real priorities in life. Most people want to have a good life for their family. They want to hang with their kids. They want to pay for the kids' wedding. They want to take vacations. They want to retire at young ages. And it really takes looking at those priorities like, and making them priorities. That's what a lot of us don't do. We don't make them real priorities. And I know a lot of people are just afraid of the numbers. A lot of people are afraid of the numbers, but you're just gonna have to pay attention to them. They won't go away. And you know, and I know that we are good at doing bad habits for a long time. And you can support a bad habit for a very, very long time. And in the end, all of a sudden, it's just like, oh, I didn't know what was happening. Like, yeah, you did. You just chose not to pay attention. So the thing I've learned is that you're just going to have reality checks with people. And you can't really tell them. They have to come around to it themselves. So you try to put all of the things that they want in life in front of them and just ask, like, what are you willing to do to actually get there? And I found that that usually breaks down some of the barrier with the numbers. And we can go for a very, very, very long time telling ourselves that we're not good at numbers. And I try to get people to change their lexicon around that. So I never say, when people say I'm not good at numbers, I was like, no, you just need to learn a little bit more about numbers. That's it. Like, you're great with numbers. It's just time to learn more. So if you look at it that way, what you learned up until high school, into college, all right, you just stop and it's time for you to just get more education on a number. So we're not good. Trust me, if you know how to do a deal and a sale, you're pretty good at numbers. We just need to change the way we talk about it.
It's really all about reframing, isn't it?
It's definitely about reframing. And right now, the way things are going in the United States and across the world, you can't afford to ignore the numbers. You really can't afford, because most of us are either struggling with savings, we're either running businesses, and you know, and I know that, gosh, right now, if you don't have money, you may not have a good quality of life. So you kind of have to pay attention to it. And we have to be very thankful for where we are, because there are a lot of people that wish they had the ability to not worry about numbers or to be scared of them.
I was having a conversation with someone who said, a relationship with money is sort of like having a relationship with a person. And so if you're constantly running into this person and you're spooked and you're scared and you're avoiding them, well, do you think they're going to want to hang around you?
No.
And I went, wow, that's actually a pretty brilliant observation.
It really is. I mean, money is, like, I call it the third person. If you're married or in a relationship, I call it the third person in your relationship. So you're going to have to make peace. Everybody's going to have to make peace, because it always just follows you around. It's kind of like my puppy, just always following you around, looking for treats. And that's kind of how money is. And you're going to have to either come to terms with it, or if you keep ignoring it, it's going to make the relationship just worse. And the same thing with debt. I call debt the third person in your marriage. It's the third person in your bed. And for business owners, I call it the unwanted employee that you can't really get rid of. So they're just always hanging around. You can't fire them, can't get rid of them, so you got to pay them off. So you got to realize that money is just going to always just be around you, and you're going to have to make peace with that relationship. And if you don't treat it well, I mean, they're not going to treat you well when you need them.
Yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
I'd heard another kind of idea about reframing thoughts on debt as actually being thankful for the debt because of what the debt has provided you. For example, my student loan debt, I'm still paying that off. But
you're very thankful.
I'm extremely thankful for that debt, because it has allowed me to engage in a profession that just brings me so much joy, and that I can help so many people. And so I've learned to reframe that idea on that debt instead of something just really bad and horrible and negative and dragging me down, as no, I am actually very grateful for this, because it does afford me the opportunity to do something I love. And
I like that.
So now when I look at, paying that debt every month, it's more of a, hey, thank you for giving me the opportunity, as opposed to, Oh,
That is a very crafty way of looking at it. I like it because it does make you do have to be appreciative of the things that you've done with debt. And I always say debt is like expensive lessons learned. So you have to figure out what you learned from those lessons. My nemesis was credit card debt, and yeah, I could have done other things with my money, but I got to travel to some amazing parts of the world. Now I got some frivolous things. I bought purses and shoes, but I still have them now. So I'm just appreciative when I wear those shoes. But you just kind of have to look at it as they're expensive lessons learned. And so you got to figure out what you want to learn from those lessons so that you don't either get back into it or you just take what you've learned and just keep growing. When it comes to student loan debt, yes, it is crippling. It is crippling most of us here in the United States, but you have the ability to get an education. Now it's on you to figure out what you're going to do with it. And I think that's where we start having the problems, is that most people don't see that they got an education that most people would literally die for. And then they just stop and just assume that somebody's supposed to take care of them. No, you chose to get it. So now you got to go do something to get rid of it. But, it's always just lessons learned. What do you want to learn from it? Where has it gotten you? And what are you going to do with it to keep going forward?
Speaking of lessons learned, you are so just cool and confident, and you come across like you know your stuff. And you do. You do. I can attest to that. But has there ever been a time in your life where you couldn't find that foxiness, just that innate, divine, feminine, personal power? And what did you do to reclaim it?
Oh my gosh, that's a really good question, and thank you for all of that, because you don't see me when the camera goes off. Uh, I will say that is the one thing that is the constant struggle. And I saw a really good interview one day with, I think it was with Oprah Winfrey. And she said, she interviewed some of the most amazing people in the world. She said, but it's so funny that the moment the camera turned off, the first thing they always said was like, I hope that was okay. What did you think? And that's kind of how I look at life. We're doing things, but we always want somebody like, was it okay? What do you think? And I've kind of had to, and that's kind of how I do things. You always want want somebody to think that you're doing well, because you don't know what's going on in your head. And it's just been very interesting trying to stay in that confident position. And but I also been owning the fact that I tell people, you know what, I don't know everything. I'm learning just like you. I haven't been in business forever. And I just try to own the fact that I'm not a genius in everything, maybe just with shoes and purses, but not even a genius there, but just really owning it. And when I'm feeling some sort of way, I just kind of look back at where I have been and where I am now. And I think most of us forget to really look at that. It's so easy for us to get down on ourselves. I even have a client working with her. She just cannot see the positives. And I was like, you need to pause and go look back at all the things that you've done and look at where you are now. And what I made her do, and I got called out from a friend, and I had to do this, but it was to create a list of the 15 coolest things you've ever done in your life. I forced my client to do it, and it was amazing how she was like, oh, wow, I kind of actually did do a few cool things. And I was getting poopy on myself, and my friend was like, no, you need to go do your own homework. So I try to remind myself, where I was, where I am, if I'm feeling down, and just realizing that, you know what, I'm just a normal person. And the other thing that I have is a cool stuff jar. And every day I put a little note of something cool that happened that day in this jar, so that at the end of the year, if I ever feel like, okay, I didn't make it, people don't like me, I'm not sure where I'm going in my business, I pull out these little cards and just read them. And it's just like, oh my gosh, I actually did some pretty cool things. And it just perks you up for the day.
That's a brilliant idea. Yeah, and I'm gonna have to think about incorporating that in my practice.
Everybody should do it. I had this cool stuff jar from a speaking engagement as a gift, and it's sat in the house for 2 years. And for whatever reason this year, I decided that, you know what, I'm actually going to use this and write down all these cool things, because as a business owner, and you know this, it is so easy to just berate yourself. It's so easy with all the things that we're doing to always feel like, okay, I'm not enough. I haven't done enough. And I was like, you know, I'm just going to write down all of these cool moments so that I can remember them. And sometimes it does take a slap in the face from a good friend to remind you of what you have done, where you have come from, and you know, and looking at you, just watching you with the podcast, like that is pretty darn cool. Because knowing you from 4 years ago, it is like, okay, I didn't see a podcast coming from you, but I can also see that you're having tons and tons of fun doing it too. So you have to remind yourself of all these little baby steps, and you're actually doing something that a lot of people are afraid to do. So enjoy it.
And I definitely am. Thank you. So when you're not coaching and speaking and podcasting, because you have your own podcast as well as a daily live stream, what are you up to?
I don't know. I travel and drink Prosecco. What else is there to do? I don't know. I travel the world. I love traveling. So I like going to different places. You know, gosh, the passport has been used quite a bit this year. So went to London, Copenhagen, Reykjavik, went to Canada a couple of times, and I don't know where I'm going in the next few months. So I love doing that. I actually have calmed down quite a bit. And now, like, I don't do coffee dates anymore. I tell people, if you want to hang out with me, you got to come to Castle Rock where I live, and let's go out to happy hour. So I like going out to happy hour and just meeting new people. I don't mind talking to you, but you're not going to get me to drink coffee. I just don't like the stuff. But I have also learned to take up photography. And that was something that kicked in last year, because I think I was so stressed out about the business. I realized I needed to think about something else. So picking up a camera, dusting off my old photography website that I forgot about, which is sad, and just got out there and just take the weekends and walk around with the camera and just kind of get a little creative and not think about anything else for a while.
I'm going to switch this up again a little bit. Who embodies Foxy in your world right now?
Oh my gosh, who embodies Foxy? Oh, that's a good question. It's going to take me a moment to answer that one. Who embodies Foxy? You know what? I run into so many business owners right now that I am just amazed. And, you know, I actually meet quite a few men, if I can call them Foxy.
Sure.
And it's just fun to see people start from where they are and start enjoying themselves in their business and doing something fun. Like watching you. You remind me of some of the other podcasters I know, and seeing them from 2 years ago with I'm not sure who's going to listen, because we've all been there. Who's going to listen? Why would they even listen to this? And next thing you know, they're headlining an event, or you see other people like, oh my gosh, like in passing, have you heard this podcast? And it's just so cool to see that, and just to see people owning what they're doing and finding a way to get creative around what they're doing and incorporating fun. And what you are doing, I don't think a lot of people really understand how amazing it is to find some sort of creative release with your business, so that you can meet more people, get your voice out there, get your message out there. And it's just fun to see. I would say, like, some of the podcasters that I've been following and the people who are just owning their space, just so much fun, because I see the other side of people who are just stressing out and looking for the next sales funnel. And I had a client the other day, and I told her she's going on a 10-day vacation. She's like, well, I got all my homework. I'm going to work on my sales funnel. I'm going to do this. And I told her, why don't you just stop for 10 days? Just stop for 10 days and just relax, gather your brain cells again, and just have some fun. and it's just cool. So Terry, you're Foxy. Some of these other amazing podcasters that, that I'm watching that are just doing their thing. It's just so much fun to watch.
And who, or can you name names?
Oh my
I'm curious.
gosh. So I have my friend, Mr. Mark Asquith. He runs the 7-Minute Mentor podcast, a great show. He comes on 7 minutes every day for the last year and a half. My friend Annette Bone with the Dancepreneur podcast. Oh my gosh, there's so many podcasts out there. I know PT, he's Philip Taylor. He's the owner of FinCon, the communities that they've created, Jared Easley and Dan, Jared and Dan, they're the owners of Podcast Movement. Just seeing them own their spaces and stepping out on that fear and doing what they're supposed to do. I have another dear sweet friend, Twyla Kay, who, you talk about life changes and just getting out there and just saying, screw the world and going and doing what she's doing. So those are amazing. I think she's about to start her own podcast. So it's just fun to watch all these people just doing their thing.
Yes, indeed. And I know it's been a heck of a lot of fun for me watching you do your thing.
Get to watch me be tired.
What's one piece of advice that you would have for my Vulpanistas? Those are the followers of all things Foxy.
Ooh.
About how to stay Foxy.
One of the things, and it's going to sound sad for like a moment, but one of the things is to kind of look at life and realize that it is short, it is precious, and it is not guaranteed. If you look at life that way, and last year, 2017 was I say it was probably my best year, but it was probably the year of the most tragedy in my life. I had friends who passed away, friends who had suicide touch their lives. And it was just a reminder for me, like, hey, this life thing that you're doing is not guaranteed at all. And I was unfortunately, I was at a funeral, and one of the mentors there who I really look up to, she told me, life is short, life is sweet, and it's very precious. And if you're not doing what you want to be doing, and if you're not happy, you need to change that right now. And for whatever reason, that just turned a light bulb on for me. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to go live, have fun, go back to doing what I said I wanted to do and enjoying it. And you'd be surprised when you kind of let that type of stuff into your life, let that joy in, it changed the direction of everything you're doing. You attract fun people. You feel so much better about yourself. And I don't have any scientific reasons why, but you just feel so much better about yourself, and you feel a whole lot more confident. And I don't know if that's just understanding that, you know what, I'm just going to go and live life right now. Just go and live life, do what I'm supposed to do, and just have a whole bunch of fun doing it.
Amen. Well, how can people find out more about you and your work, Mrs. Jones?
Oh, wow. Everybody, if you're interested in anything we talked about today, you can definitely hop on over to keepupwithmrsjones.com, or you can go find me on Facebook at facebook.com/keepupwithmrsjones, or over on Instagram. Every morning, I do a live stream called Ask the Budgetologist, and I answer any questions around business, budgeting, solo entrepreneurship. I talk about landing speaking gigs, and on Fridays, we just talk about some fun stuff. So if you ever want to come and join the party, all you got to do is follow the links, come and tune in, and I literally do go live every day. And if you ever want to see the non-Foxy side of me, Saturdays are the behind the scenes, and you get me as is.
And even as is, I get the feeling you're still pretty foxy.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I call it the face of entrepreneurship. There you go.
I think I have that face occasionally myself.
The non-sexy, non-foxy side of things. Because sometimes I think, you know what, that's kind of like where life happens in the non-sexy moments.
Well, Felicia, we are bumping up on time here, but I want to say thank you again for taking the time to chat with me. It's always a pleasure. and you are out there making an impact on your world, on the people that you're surrounded by. God bless you for doing the work that you do, and thank you.
Oh, thank you so very much, Terry.